Reconciliation Trust and the support of the people of Messines, now called by the Flemish name Mesen. The design is that of a traditional round tower dating back to the 8th century. It is 33.5 metres high, and part of the design of the tower is lit up by the sun only on the 11th hour. So if you're inside, you'll see that. And what that was supposed to do was represent the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. Yeah, that's correct. When all the fighting along the Western Front stopped, however, we know that we had casualties that died after that, soldiers who were wounded and would later die from their wounds. The Peace Park was officially opened on the 11th of November 1998 by then the President of Ireland, Mary McAleish, in the presence of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II and King Albert II of Belgium. Just like Johan, King Albert is a king of Belgium. And each year there is a remembrance service on the 11th of November at the Peace Park to remember the fallen. There's a bronze plaque at the entrance of the Island of Ireland Peace Park and inscribed as a police pledge. From the crest of this ridge, which was the scene of horrific carnage in the First World War, on which we built a peace park and round tower to commemorate the thousands of young men from all parts of Ireland who fought a common enemy, defended democracy and the rights of all nations, whose graves are in shockingly uncountable numbers, and those who have no graves. We condemn war and the futility of war. We denounce violence, aggression, intimidation, threats, and unfriendly behaviour. So what they have in it is, you'll see the casualties. So they've listed the casualties as, for the 10th Irish, was 9,363. The 60th Irish Division had 28,398, and the 36th Ulster Division they have calculated as 32,186. No doubt there'll be historians out there who would dispute the figures, but it gives you a rough idea anyway of the carnage that happened and the number of Irish soldiers. Bear in mind that Dublin was part of the Commonwealth, and Northern Ireland was formed in 21. Richard, you're 100% right. So they were all Irish soldiers. Was that their tactics had to change. Officers came out during the Battle of the Somme with their rank on their arm, and that was just asking for trouble, because what do you think the Germans done? Targeted the officers. So what we find is the British Army had to readjust its tactics, and what they'd done, they realised that rather than attacking in mass at times, it was best splitting up, which we know now as platoon and section attacks. Also what they learned to do, and this is what was so successful during this battle, was they done a thing called leapfrog. So what leapfrog meant was one section went forward, or platoon, accomplished its objective, consolidated its position, and another platoon came forward and took over the attack. As we'll hear later on, the Battle of Messines, as we come into a little place called Wyshit, which was known by the British Army as White Sheet, and this is where the 16th Irish liberated during the Battle of Messines in 1917. On the 7th of June 1917, the attack took place at 03:10 hours. In the attack was the 107th and the 109th Brigade, with the 108th in support. We're going down to the footballers' memorials of the Khaki Chums and UEFA, and we're actually going to do a drive through no man's land. So I'm going to use the Linesman and we're going to show you a drive through no man's land. So that would be from the German, because we're heading down, and we'll do it on the way back up from the British. Because it was in Messines that Adolf Hitler was a runner for the German army. Adolf Hitler would be awarded the Iron Cross, the highest gallantry honour that the German army can give to a soldier for his actions, and his job as a runner to take messages back and forth. And Adolf Hitler was hit in the head with a bit of shrapnel. Everyone turns around and says he was mental, he was unstable. Maybe that's something to do with it as well. It's no excuse of what happened, nor am I trying to make an excuse, but maybe that is a contributing factor. When he was injured, he was brought back into the city. This is when we turn the corner here. Yeah. And that's where his wounds were seen to. Just that church up there, there's actually a cellar at the very bottom. That no memorials belonging to the First World War were to be touched. The only thing that he done, he blew up at accompanying a monument that was for General Flute, who was from the French Army commander. He blew it up, and also he took the train that the armistice was signed back to Germany and burnt it. But there was a direct order, and that's why when we go about today we can see the memorials. He gave a direct order because he fought during the Great War. Believe it or not, his commanding officer was actually Jewish. Unbelievable, isn't it? So guys, we're actually on Messines Ridge now. I want to give you a bit of appreciation for the ground. It doesn't look like a ridge, but see, if you're down at that bottom of that hill, that is a ridge. Trust me. Don't be deceived by the looks. And here is the island of Ireland Peace Park. What I would say to you is as well, the German front line. So everything to the right of me here was the German front line, and it sort of went back up towards. So you're right on the front trenches, but what we're going is we're going along where the front line was here, yeah, and we're going to come out into no man's land. This little farm was called the Petit Orbit. So guys, this is us now in no man's land, and this is how far the guys had to go into the British front line. Down to a little point which was called Donington's Hall. So we're still going through no man's land. We're just about to come up into the British front line, which is roughly about now. Yep. So you on? Let's go. So that was quite a long no man's land, wasn't it? Can you imagine attacking that? And anybody that's on the bus, if you look behind, you can actually see the ridge. It's very, very deceiving, the ridge, to give you that appreciation. And mythologically, events of the First World War. But what was the real story behind the truce? What did happen? And did the British and German soldiers really play football in no man's land? Late on Christmas Eve 1914, the men of the British Expeditionary Force, known as BEF, heard German troops in the trenches opposite them singing Christmas carols and patriotic songs, and saw lanterns and saw a small fir tree along the trenches. The following day, the British and German soldiers met in no man's land, engaged, exchanged gifts, took photographs, and some played important games of football. They also buried casualties, repaired trenches and dugouts after Boxing Day. The Christmas truce was not observed anywhere else along the Western Front. Elsewhere, the fighting continued and the casualties did occur. On a similar scale happened again. Despite this, there were some isolated incidents of soldiers holding brief truces later in the war, and not only at Christmas. In what was known as live and let live system, in quiet sectors of the front line, brief pauses of hostilities should I say, were sometimes technically agreed, allowing both sides to repair the trenches or gather their dead. Because it's the UEFA Football Memorial. The memorial, as you see, has trenches on either side. They're not real trenches. And the blockhouse that you can see down there, yeah, was actually brought in from the battlefield. So some historians, some tour guides will turn around and say it's very, very deceiving. But all it's basically trying to do is to give people an idea of the football. The truce itself is just on down there. So we'll go and have a look at the UEFA Memorial, and anybody then that wants to go down to the Khaki Chums. The Khaki Chums Memorial is just a wooden cross, but a quarter way across the field is the British front line. So we're probably about, I would turn around and say, just before where then bikers are now, I see going along, just back would have been the British front line. So it gives you an idea how close that wee memorial is, but it really is worth. And again, you can actually see the ridge there, yeah? And that's where the German third line was. So there was three lines there. So you had the third, but on down the second and the first. Okay. If you have a prefix, that's your commitment that you will supply men from there, and it's all down to politics. This is all down to politics, and where Major General Nugent sort of falls out, but people a wee bit. Well, the people fall out with him. He writes a letter in Christmas 1916, and he goes, "Where are the sons of Ulster?" And that didn't go too well on either side. They were going, "Who does he think he is?" But we couldn't get the men. Sure, we couldn't. After the Battle of the Somme, we really, really struggled. Even though that you would say that the Ulster Division was probably, say, about 60 to 70% all. Mind yourselves there, guys. From Ulster, a lot of these soldiers that were coming in were actually from England. All the one stage there, people thought it was stolen. It wasn't missing. And within anybody that does battlefield tours or involved in the Great War or has an interest, it was all over. Where has it gone? The guys just came over to revamp it up, and they didn't tell anyone. So people came along and went, "Someone has stolen the memorial." It wasn't. All it was doing was getting renovated, cleaned up, and put back here. So it's a very, very poignant part. And there's the pictures of the actual truce, and that's by the Imperial War Museum, James.
This is a photograph. Is everybody aware of that? German soldiers. How do we know that's real? How do we know that's a real picture?
Right.
Real photograph. It's as good an answer as anybody will ever get. See a wee guy there? The next photograph of him and his mother in the newspaper. He survived the war. The rest of them didn't. And that's how you know that's genuine.
Chocolate. I mean, it's probably one of the most poignant. What I can say as amateur 36 Ulster Division historian, that when the boys are in the trenches in 1916, some of the war diaries state that there was no ceasefire. It was like they're still in action. So I can't find any document that basically gives the narrative not to, but for them's the right that there was no ceasefire, everything was still normal. There had to be something coming down for the high command of the army. Bear in mind, the army commander is in charge of everyone. Then you have different corps within the army, yeah? You have them, and then you have divisions. So from the army all the way down, there had to be something for them to put into the war diary. So this is your chance, photographs. Just be careful, there is a gully either side. These gullies.